The final Elite Eight game on Sunday evening brings us Auburn, Michigan State, another 1-2 matchup in the South. Auburn, the number one overall seed. Auburn really kind of struggled through their game against Michigan. It was super sloppy for anyone that was watching. I mean, a lot of turnovers, just careless with the basketball, I thought. And honestly, it was kind of the same way for Michigan until they pulled away by 9, kind of middle second half. And then Auburn went on a ridiculous run. I think it was like a 28-6 extended run. Ended up winning that one, of course. And then Michigan State, for a while, I thought they were kind of dead. I mean, they were down 10 towards the end of the first half. Seemed like they weren't really going to get anything going offensively. And then second half, Jace Richardson was awesome. Like he had 20 in this game, super efficient. I think he was 6 for 8, hit 4 threes. They ended up finding a way, as has seemed to be the case all year long. They continue to find a way. So this game here, Auburn right now sitting at -5.5. Torvik projects this closer to Auburn -6, but based on how both teams are playing, I kind of think this number is way too big.
Yeah, and then Sparty's just so good at hanging around in games just because, I mean, their two-way rebounding ability is probably, you could consider it the best in the country. It's like them and like St. Mary's on the glass, and then it's pretty much everybody else. But yeah, I think that number is definitely too big. And like if I'm getting points with Michigan State, I kind of trust them to either hang around or win outright, really. So, and in this game, they do have advantages. Like I said, they can get on the glass. They're 25th in offensive rebound rate in the country. Auburn, a little bit vulnerable on the defensive glass just because they're always kind of going for block shots, and that leaves rebounders open or leaves chances for offensive rebounds. And they're 153rd in defensive rebound rate. They also foul a ton, and Michigan State loves, they kind of look to foul bait with some guys like Fiddler, like Cohen Carr, and like Fears. Like they're all kind of hunting fouls. They're not really hunting to drive in the lane and make shots. They're always trying to search for a body to get to the free throw line. And I think they can do that here against it's not an undisciplined Auburn defense, but I mean, some guys on the floor are just looking to jump at everything. So I do think they can get to the line at a pretty solid rate. And Auburn's defense is kind of built off of denying catch and shoot opportunities and really defending the 3-point line with their versatility on the wing, their length on the wing, with like Kelly, Baker Mazzara, Denver Jones, who's like a super underrated defender. But in this game, Michigan State, they don't look to really live behind the 3-point line at all. So I don't really think that's a advantage for Auburn here. I think Michigan State can kind of operate in the mid-range area where they're super comfortable. Guys like Richardson, Akins, like even Fiddler and Fears with his like floater game. I'm not going to give his jump shot any credit, but those guys can operate in the mid-range and even get to the rim. And like I said, they can draw fouls in this game. Michigan State, they can also get in transition a little bit here. Auburn's transition defense is actually not that great. It's typically, or Bruce Pearl's defenses are typically really good transition denial defenses. They allow transition in the 56th percentile right now in the entire country. And we know Tom Izzo teams love to run. I mean, they're in the 92nd percentile in transition possessions this season, or percentage of possessions in transition. So they're going to look to run at all costs. And I think they can potentially wear down those Auburn bigs a little bit if they can play their style and get out in transition a ton. So yeah, I think Michigan State is live in this game. The one thing for me is I think Auburn against Michigan State's isolation forcing defense, I think could have some success. I mean, we saw Todd Pettiford in isolation last night just, go off, and they have other guys that can do it. Even if Pettiford's not making shots, they have other guys like Baker Mazzara, Denver Jones, than even like Janai Broom in the post-up game, because Sparty doesn't love to send two down to the post. So I think these Auburn scores one-on-one ultimately end up being the difference. Like late in games, I don't really trust the late game shot making of Sparty if this game gets super tight. So I'll side with Auburn slightly to win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Sparty was able to win this.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I almost like lean wanting to say Sparty's going to win. I just like last night, in this game, I guess, right? Like Auburn shouldn't have any issues turning the ball over. They're seventh in turnover rate. Michigan State 249th in defensive turnover rate. They don't really force a ton of turnovers. Auburn should be comfortable, but after like watching last night, like sometimes Auburn just is so self-inflicted with their turnovers, like just trying to make hero plays sometimes. Baker Mazzara trying to make flashy passes, and like you're in the Sweet 16. Like, I get, you want to be comfortable and stuff, but you're just kind of throwing the ball away in some of these possessions. So that's an area I do worry about, regardless of what the numbers say. I just think that Auburn can be a little bit loose at times. But I also worry a little bit on Auburn's side. I worry about, you mentioned the free throw rate defense, 310th in the country. I worry about those two bigs, Cardwell and Broom, getting into foul trouble. It feels like every game I watch, at least one or both of them picks up 4 fouls with, like 8 to 10 minutes left in the game. And with as much as like Michigan State goes to the line, I could see it in this game being even earlier, depending on their discipline. So that's an area I'm a little bit worried about, because then at that point, right, like Auburn has to play a little bit smaller, right? They go to like Chaney Johnson in for Cardwell or in for Broom. But if they're both in foul trouble, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. And Baker Mazzara loves to be in foul trouble, and like this is a game where they're really going to need him. His ability to create off the bounce, make shots. He's really impressed me beyond what I had expectations for him this season. So I'm worried about Auburn's best players not being able to be on the court because of foul trouble in this game. They need to really focus on taking care of the defensive glass if they want to win this game, which, as we've seen all year now, they have a 36 game sample size, and you said 153rd on defensive rebound rate. So, I don't know how much I trust it against the top 25 offensive rebound rate team. I think I'd like to say Auburn's going to win, but I really don't know. I just don't know how much I trust them. They just seem super just careless at times. Hard to trust in these tournament games.
Yeah, and another factor is I think Michigan State's going to be able to play their two big lineup for basically the entire game. Like I think they'll be able to live with guys like Janai Broom and Chaney Johnson spacing the floor and short closing out to those guys and giving them shots. Because last game against Ole Miss, they couldn't play their two big lineup at all. Like they didn't even start Zapala. I don't think he played a minute. I don't think he came off the bench at all. So and Cohen Carr was the guy in that game. He was kind of a perfect guy for Izzo to throw in, but I don't think he'll get I don't know how many minutes he played. I think he definitely played at least 28, 29 minutes at the 4 position last game. But I think there's going to be some room to play guys like Zapala, guys like Kohler and Carson Cooper together to really optimize their ability to get on the glass and really control the shot volume battle. So I think that's pretty big because Sparty, as we know, isn't like the greatest shot making team out there. And I do struggle to see how they're going to generate any sort of consistent perimeter offense, especially against an elite like isolation forcing defense in Auburn. And Michigan State grades out very poorly when playing in isolation. They don't like to play in isolation at all. Like the only guy that can really operate in isolation at a high level is Jace Richardson. So I'll give him his credit now. We got a little hate for not giving Jace Richardson his credit last episode, but yeah, I think I don't really see a ton of paths for perimeter offense outside of a guy like Richardson creating off the bounce, creating in the mid range, or even like scoring at the rim. So I do think they're going to have some room to play that two big lineup to potentially kind of smoke Auburn on the glass, and that could ultimately be what wins Sparty this game.
Yeah, I agree. So, I think my prediction, I think this game goes down to the final minute. I think it's going to be tied. Maybe I'll look back and we can run the tape and I'm crazy. But I see this going to the final minute. I'm just going to go out on a limb. Michigan State moves on to the Final Four. That's my prediction.
I mean, I would back that for sure. I just think I do think it comes down to like a last second situation, last second shot. It's going to be one of these guards, Pettiford, Baker Mazzara. They're going to make a tough shot in isolation with like 8 or 9 seconds left, and they're going to win this game by 2 or 3. I think that's going to be what it comes down to. I wouldn't be surprised if Sparty won. Wouldn't be surprised if this game didn't end up being like super tight. Like I could see Sparty winning this game by 8 to 9 just because they foul out Auburn's front court and just continue to just bludgeon them on the glass. And they're really good late in games at the free throw line. So it wouldn't really surprise me at all. But I'll just side with Auburn winning a thriller.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm rooting for Auburn because I want to see all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. But I just have this gut feeling Michigan State has some advantages here. I think they get it done. So, it should be a fun game between Michigan State and Auburn. We're going to, I guess, be split on our decision here. Wouldn't really be surprised by either outcome, though. Should be a tight, fun game that goes down to the wire, determining who goes on to San Antonio next weekend.